The art of the Cusco School refers to art created in and around the city of Cusco in the southeast of Peru, although it also includes further away areas like current-day Bolivia, Chile, and Ecuador. Cusco was the capital of the Inca Empire until the Spanish conquered it in the 16th century. It would become the first place in the Americas where European painting techniques were taught, and during the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries, the people in and around Cusco would create some pretty unique art. The theme of their art is religious, and specifically Catholic, and the reason for that is simple. It was because the Spanish and some other European countries would send people to the Cusco region to convert the people to the Catholic religion, and some of those people would also introduce the European painting techniques. But while the painting technique and themes were inspired by the Europeans, the Cusco School threw their own unique sauce over it, making the art clearly different from the European artists, and especially from 1688 onwards when they started to work separately from the Spanish invaders. For example, local landscapes are used, a lot of birds and flowers are present, and there are a lot of decorative elements, especially on their outfits. But also in terms of the themes they painted and the symbolism included, there were many unique elements. For example, the Cusco School loved to paint archangels, and the native people from the Cusco region already had symbols from their own religions, so it was not effective to use traditional Catholic symbols in the same way if they had a different meaning in the Andes region. So artists had to be creative in coming up with clear symbols in their paintings. The Cusco School really began with the arrival of the Italian painter and Jesuit priest Bernardo Bitti in 1583. He went on a Jesuit mission to Peru and would introduce them to the European art style, and in particular the mannerism style which he had learned in Rome. You can see here a coronation of the Virgin he painted in Peru. Bitti did not directly teach students, as he was often moving around, but his works for cathedrals have inspired local artists to follow his example. More Italian and Spanish artists followed in the footsteps of Bitti, further introducing the European art styles to the Cusco region, allowing a unique art movement to develop. They were sent there with the specific purpose of setting up a painting school and teach the local people how to paint Catholic themes. When the mannerism style was replaced in Europe by the Baroque style, the mannerism style would still remain popular in Cusco, but they were also getting exposed to the Baroque artworks of famous artists like Peter Paul Rubens and Francisco de Zurburan, as prints and copies of their works made their way to Cusco. This Adoration of the Magi, for example, is directly adapted from a print of one of Rubens's paintings. And over time, Cusco art became more and more unique and distinct from European art, as it was created by local artists who developed their own twist to the European ideas, and we will discuss some of these unique elements next. One unique element is that the traditional symbolism from European art did not always combine well with the already existing symbolism in the Andes region. For example, take this painting of the Holy Trinity by an unknown artist from around 1730. It shows three identical individuals wearing crowns. The idea being that the Holy Trinity is one God represented by three different persons. In Europe, the idea of the Holy Trinity would be depicted by showing an older man representing God, a younger one representing Jesus, and a dove to represent the Holy Spirit. But as the dove already had a distinct meaning among the locals in the Andes region, it would have been confusing to use it to depict the Holy Trinity effectively, as locals may associate the presence of a dove to one of their local gods. And in the end, this kind of art was made to tell the Catholic story effectively to people who were not familiar with it. In general, birds were very important in Cusco art, with the abundance of native birds that had their own local meanings. This painting from around 1750 is entitled Our Lady of the Rosary with Saint Dominic and Saint Rose, and shows the Virgin Mary with an enormous robe in a triangular shape. Definitely not something you regularly see in European art. But the Incas who lived in and around Cusco had their pyramids for religious purposes, and this may have inspired this triangular shape. And here's another example of the triangular shape in this painting entitled Virgin of Bethlehem. And notice that not only Mary, but also baby Jesus is wearing the triangular shape. Another thing you may notice is the difference in which the Cusco School handled perspective in paintings. While in European paintings it was pretty standard to apply perspective in a realistic and formal way, properly including your vanishing points, the Cusco School treated perspective much more freely. Some may say that the perspective is often not included correctly. But just as some more modern artists in Europe would abandon the strict rules of perspective, the Cusco School allowed more freedom on this element and were much more interested in capturing the religious message than accurately capturing architectural details or perspective. This freedom can also be seen in the presence of more distorted figures, and both these elements have some of their roots in the lasting popularity of the Mannerist painting style as mentioned earlier, which distorts shapes and figures on purpose. And notice the many decorative elements in most of the paintings, something that is distinctly unique for Cusco School paintings. Just as with the specific types of symbolisms that developed in the Cusco School, there were also certain themes that became popular that were less common in Europe, albeit that a large majority of their art was religious. An obvious example is that they had their own saints and biblical people they revered, like Saint Rose of Lima. And many depictions of people were considered effigies, which were paintings for spiritual communication, a connection between the physical and spiritual world. This was an element that was already present in the Inca art traditions and carried over to the way Catholicism was practiced. Another specific example is that the Cusco School loved to depict archangels, like Raphael, who you can see here. And look at this painting from around 1700 entitled Archangel Eliel with Harquebus. Instead of the traditional depiction of angels with classic suits of armor and bladed weapons, the Cusco School preferred to depict them with weapons like harquebuses and the elegant attire of military leaders. They are also known collectively as warrior angels. They had extra appeal to the Cusco School as they connected with their Inca culture, where winged deities were already popular. And if you were wondering who the Archangel Eliel is, they also had many more archangels than was common in Europe. The way they depicted these new archangels was inspired by their native religions from the time before the Spanish arrived. The natives from Cusco would immediately associate the harquebus with Ilapa, their old god of thunder and lightning. You may have noticed that while I showed you many works from the Cusco School, I did not mention the names of the artists. The reason is that most of them are simply not known. In a few cases, we do know who the artist is, or at least that the work comes from the circle of that artist. The most famous native Cusco artist is arguably Diego Quispe Tito, who had a long career in the 17th century. And you can see one of his works here. The idea of not signing a work was deliberate, as their pre-Spanish period idea about art was that it was something communal, and thus the individual artist was not that important. Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of the Cusco School. Having grown up mostly among Western art, I have seen relatively few of these Cusco artworks in person. Most of their art is still in South America, but there are definitely some really nice works visible abroad as well, especially in American museums. Finally, if I missed something important, please let it know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.